So this movie was, overall, it didn't seem to be a poor sort of parody. I mean, it's obviously periodic, and but, as a parody, the way it was structured, with the constant uh, telephone calls and such. That was interesting. That was an interesting way to do it. Uh, but yeah, the problem is that it jarred really with the gore. Yeah, very much jarred. I don't know what it is. It's jarring. You have comedy along with such violence, and even just a little bit of violence, a lot of violence, or at least of supposed violence, obviously, fictional violence very much, but still, the point is, it's still there, it's still depicted, so it's, suppose ultimately there is a sort of ratio is ideal for certain movies. I mean, you can combine genres, but I don't know if you could combine them fully, you know. Um, I guess, some people have different opinions of how much each genre um, could, contribute to the movie. Some, I mean, when I do occasionally watch rom-coms, I'm usually annoyed that there's more romance than comedy. I prefer there was more comedy. So in this sense, this is the weird thing about this. It's not that there wasn't comedy. I mean, it was. There was throughout comedy. So I cannot complain that there wasn't. But there was also a lot of gore and repeated gore as well for some reason. Yeah, they just repeated some scenes. It's just annoying. I mean, um, it's not that I still don't like watching it for the sake of it. And ideally, obviously, get when it comes to, I mean, violent movies, obviously, then it just needs a good story. If it doesn't have a good story, then the violence is capricious, obviously, right? Now, when it comes to this sort of thing, when it comes to parodies, well, yes, you don't generally have good stories. It's the point mainly is the parody. And indeed, this isn't about the story per se, more about the parody, about the sort of meta-analysis of the thing, which is interesting, but still, there is all going on. It would have been nice if they toned it down. They really went all in about it. But otherwise, it was interesting how it kept going on about it. I literally didn't know there was even an article about final girls. Apparently, I didn't even notice. Apparently, there was a final girl in Cycle as well. I couldn't even remember exactly because I mean, there was one primary girl that female that was murdered. So I mean, I'm not sure if there was anyone else. I can't quite remember, but yeah, it's a bit weird. And obviously, the ones that I do remember, Halloween and such. That's certainly something that it's yeah, very memorable. But yeah, and then there's that thing where you first get into the consciousness of the killer, which is also what Halloween did. But obviously, yeah, I haven't personally seen any other movies where this specifically is done. But, even if it wasn't comedic, it would be interesting, if the killer, who's possessed, finds out. I personally haven't watched any other movie like this that I can remember at least. So I'm not sure if there are other movies, because presumably i- it's um it's possible to have such movies, even comedic movies. Um, but yeah, as a comedy horror, this didn't disappoint too much. Although this is the thing, as I said, the excess of violence, the excess gore, um, like I know it's not real, but even then it looks disgusting, the element, where I don't watch movies just for the sake of disgust, I certainly don't go for that. And fear isn't necessarily the element here. I do ideally feel fear when I watch horror movies. That's the whole point. I do, but fear is more subtle than, just seeing gore isn't fear so much. Yeah, I mean, sure, there is fear in, being chased by some crazy killer, I guess, but, indulging too much in gore is not so much about that. That's just disgust, Slightly different response, generally people have to such things. But this is the problem. I mean, I like the comedic aspects, and it was consistently comedic, but it just had so much gore that I actually left it. I mean, paused it and actually didn't continue it until I, about 2 months later, actually. It's quite something, yeah. It's then something that I forgot where I was, but ended up repeating some scenes, which obviously made me want to feel like I will need to pause it again. So you know how it happens. It's all because there's just too much gore, Otherwise, so it's an interesting sort of thing, how it all happens and such. And obviously, the character of Chuck was, I think, the most interesting personality. She really was the funniest, I guess. Yeah. But other than that, it did go too much the route of the casual sort of horror movie, the very stereotypical slasher. But slashers do need stories. I mean, that's what made Psycho interesting. Although I don't personally find it incredibly interesting, unlike many people, it seems. But presumably, it is what made it interesting. I mean, if you just have slashing with no story, then it'd be incredibly boring, right? But it did have something of a story. I personally prefer Bates Motel when it comes to the Psycho series, but obviously that's an entire series. So, but personally, I prefer Psycho as a movie is limited. It doesn't have that much of a story ultimately either. But yeah, I don't know. Anyway, when it comes to this, so this is the thing. I mean, it's not like it was going to have a story, was it? So what then it should have done though is concentrate on what it really what meant to verge onto, which is comedy. So I mean, in a way, have even more comedy, but that it tried to have the conventional slasher movie, which usually to be idea to be, I mean, interesting slasher movies that you need a good story. Otherwise, just violence and at best boredom, but just disgusting violence. This this is the problem. It doesn't have by itself a good story, so should have concentrated on the comedy, which it did sort of, but tone down the violence. So that's the problem, of course, when it comes to these sort of movies. But otherwise, interesting. It just developed over some thread, yeah, to people talking online. Be interesting. If everyone could make movies out of just a conversation. But I don't think that's generally, yeah, I don't know. But yeah, otherwise, I mean, it's interesting, it's not a mystery or anything, even though it sort of presents itself as a mystery sort of, title and everything. As a parody, though, for yeah, horror slasher movies, it's possible at best, but this is the problem, it would have been better, certainly appreciated more if it didn't have so much violence, just a lot, especially when it comes to what was it? I think the kayak guy. Yeah, a bit of just too much. Uh, you know, it's all too much really. But Uh, should have concentrated on the comedy really.